Buongiorno a tutti.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Please take your seat. Welcome to this event. Padua calls Sarajevo, 30 years together for peace. It's an important, intense time. 30 years have gone by since the beginning of the war in Bosnia, which was maybe the most tragic chapter of the dissolution of former Yugoslavia, which started in 1991 and then continued across the 90s. It's an important event for other reasons as well that we will mention during this morning. This event is organized by Banca Etica and the municipality of Padua under the sponsorship of the Centro for Human Rights, Antonio Papisca, and with the support of the Observatory Cani Caucasus, a center for international cooperation. We have with us many girls and many boys from the last year of high school, youth born in 2003, 2004. I forgot to introduce myself. I am a journalist. My name is Davide Sigale. I work for this website informing on Southeastern Europe and Caucasus. Often we hold lessons or talks to explain what happened in the 90s in the former Yugoslavia to young people of your age. And we need a few words to put in context the situation of those years. I was young in that period. I remember that at school we had organized convoys of humanitarian aid for refugees running from Bosnia. Unfortunately, today you need less words to understand the situation because we're back in a situation of war. There's war in Europe. Often we heard say that in Europe there's been peace after the Second World War. Every new conflict, we say, since the Second World War, we're back in war. This is not true, and it's proven by ex-Yugoslavia and this meeting that we're having here. It's not true for ex-Yugoslavia. It's not true for many areas of the Caucasus that are part of Europe. And it's not true for Ukraine, because the war in Ukraine now has horrible and unimaginable dimensions, but it was already present since 2014. A similar meeting is relevant. It's important to talk about some projects. We will have a number of guests who will talk about projects to reconnect fabrics, rebuild communities, promote social development, sustainable development and peace. And this event is sponsored by a bank that has peculiar features with strong values on reconnecting sustainable social fabrics, and by a local entity, a political and administrative level close to the community. I won't be long today because we don't have much time. I apologize with our guests if I will be very strict on the timing. I'm asking Gabriella Salviulo to join me on stage, Director of Centro for Human Rights, Antonio Papisca, and Francesca Benciolini, Councillor for International Cooperation and Peace of the Municipality of Padua. In connection, we have from Sarajevo, Deputy Mayor Haris Basic, that I would like to welcome. Welcome. I give you the honor of opening this event on Yugoslavia. Mr. Basic, you have the floor. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me, for organizing this conference, and for your efforts to introduce this burdening and horrifying topic to youngsters of Italy, and I guess from young people from many other parts of Europe and the world, because especially in this moment, 30 years onward, it is essential to realize that Europe was not that peaceful as many in especially European Union would like to portray it in the since the Second World War, as you just said rightly a few minutes ago. I'm the Haris Basic, Deputy Mayor of Sarajevo, and I prepared a welcoming speech, which will in parts be a short statistical, even with the very bad statistics, introduction to the recent history of Sarajevo and the things that have happened to us, the war that has happened to us, the siege that has happened to us 30 years ago. While, as I understand, many of you youngsters in the audience were not even born, but some of you, as you have just said, Mr. Speaker, of course, have witnessed through your own physical, psychological, emotional experience. So let me read it through, and then we can perhaps discuss it in small, in not that huge period that would last too long, because I'm sorry, I have to leave in half an hour or 45 minutes. We have some busy dates, busy 2 days marking the day of the city and the 30 years of sieging the city. So, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the city of Sarajevo and its citizens, and on behalf of the mayor Benjamina Karic, and on my own behalf as her deputy, I'm proud and grateful to be able to greet you on the conference Padova calls Sarajevo 30 years together for peace, cooperation projects, and experiences for future without wars. This event, organized at the initiative of the city of Padova Human Rights Center, named after the great Italian peacemaker Professor Antonio Papisca and Banco Etica, gave us a great honor and showed us that we are not alone and that we have extraordinary friends who support us. This occasion is important and symbolical. On the April the 5th, we are marking the 30th anniversary of the beginning of the siege of Sarajevo. It was the longest siege of the city in the modern history of warfare that lasted for full 44 months. During that time, more than 11,000 civilians were killed, including 1,601 children. And over 50,000 civilians were slightly or seriously injured. It is estimated that around 500,000 missiles or grenades were fired on the city during the siege. On July 22nd, 1993 alone, the record number of the grenades hit in Sarajevo, it was 3,777 missiles that were fired on the city. On average, during these 4 years, 329 shells were fired on daily basis. During 1,425 days of siege, more than 380,000 people lived without food, electricity, water, and heating. I was, together with my family, among those people. The citizens who defended the city were actually defending the legacy of the April the 6th, 1945, when the Second World War ended and we were liberated. But Sarajevo did not give in. It survived stronger and even more proud. It remained a city that loves people and it is loved by the people. Beautiful and attractive, with fascinating agricultural structures, with deeply rooted centuries-old tradition of tolerance and coexistence and the acceptance of others. For Bosnians who live in Sarajevo, a place of perfect harmony of different sounds and customs, tolerance in a way of living, and not an imposed norm that they are forced to live by. That fact created our peacemaking conscience. It created our intellectual and multi-ethnic way of life, defending its freedom-loving spirit and preserve its well-known openness for all cultures and religions and ideologies. In the hierarchy of life's values, we put peace in the first place. The turbulent past of the city should be a reminder to all and the motive to join peace activities in order to promote the culture of peace and, what is most important, the dignity and sanctity of life of all human beings. Unfortunately, the world has been put to the test for a very long time. The conflicts and wars in which innocent civilian lives are lost are our reality. That is why we need to unify and solidarity among us now more than ever, with the message that to firmly reject violence as a method of solving political and other issues. Despite all internal troubles aggravated by outbreak of COVID-19 and all external political and economic pressures, my homeland, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and its capital, Sarajevo, have managed to resist and preserve their democratic spirit, to send a message of openness for cooperation and dialogue and strengthening of partner relationship with the freedom-loving countries of the world. Sarajevo today is a very dynamic and active city which strives to use its potential in its best way possible to the benefits of its citizens, which are our strongest resource. We see our potential in young people whom we need to encourage and instill in them new positive attitudes, universal values, and new open perspectives. Sarajevo is a city that is turned to the future. We want to build a future for Europe together with you and give our contribution to achieving world peace. Dear friends, this is an opportunity to establish a regular communication between Sarajevo and Padova through specific cooperation projects that we have already established between our music academies and clinics. In the end, allow me to invite you and the citizens of the friendly city of Padua and all of the Republic of Italy to come to Sarajevo and to get to know the rich history of the city, take a walk through its old town Baščaršija, which is the Oriental Museum in the open, and enjoy the unique blend of cultures and religions, our traditional food, visit our agricultural gems, such as City Hall, take a ride on the cable car and visit Sarajevo Olympic Museum, and which is the only Olympic museum in the region. There is a legend which says, the person who drinks water from the Baščaršija fountain will always return to the city. Human beings cannot live without water, and we cannot live without Sarajevo. That is perhaps the secret of the survival of the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Arish Basic. Thank you for your message. We wish that the European Union has the courage to open its arms towards the city and Bosnia and Herzegovina and overcome the walls and barriers that we've seen in the past years. Now I give the floor to Gabriella Salviulo. You have the floor. Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to give a special welcome to the girls and boys and each guest. I would like to really thank the municipality of Padua and Banca Etica for organizing this event to think about peace. I give the regards of the Centro di Attinea for Human Rights, Antonia Papisca of the University of Padua, and in general of the University of Padua. 2022 is a year of and for exceptional reflections and celebrations. The Center for Human Rights celebrates 40 years of history. The University of Padua celebrates 800 years since its foundation. These are stories of commitment and responsibility for the knowledge, the training, the education, scientific research, but above all, commitment for peace and freedom, as the motto says, Universis Patavina Libertas. But the events of 2022 are not just a celebration of the past, but they underline the commitment and the responsibility for the future. As the motto for 800 years of Padua says, free your future. In the time we're living in, freedom, peace, respect for human rights are violated, and the future scares as much as the present. The founding values of the university and of the Center for Human Rights represent our compass that shows us the way to go with conviction and without any type of hesitation in perspective, as Professor Papiska said, local perspective. Think global and act local. The 30-year celebration of this conference is part of this context. 30 years ago, the center of the university, with its founder Antonio Papiska and the then young collaborator Marco Mascia, answered the call of Sarajevo. So anniversaries are important because they are times for reflection. 30 years ago, when to paraphrase the title of today's topic, Sarajevo called, the center answered loud and clear. And I would like to read the text prepared for the arrival in Sarajevo of the blessed builders of peace, 10th December 1992, International Day for Human Rights, that I would invite you to read because it's very, very fitting. I wish you a fruitful session, and I apologize for not remaining with you because I have prior engagements, making a quotation. In this situation that has already caused many deaths and pains, and whose cost is much higher than that of a serious program of economic solidarity, the international civil society has been reacting for a long time, appealing to the ethics of responsibility, justice, and solidarity, and legal duties resulting from international standards on the rights of men of peoples. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Professor, for your words. And now I give the floor to Francesca Benciolini, Councillor of the Municipality of Padua. Hello, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this place that is a place of our municipality that belongs to all of us. It's a public place where it is important for us as a municipality of Padua, and I give you the regards of our mayor, Sergio Giordani, our administration, and the entire city. It's an important place because it belongs to all of us, so it's the right place to meet today to open this reflection. As said before, when the last part of the war started, that we're witnessing directly because it touches us, it touches many people that we know in Ukraine. They said that this is the first war in Europe after the Second World War. Unfortunately, this has been said often also by authoritative journals, papers. We know that it isn't so, and we want to say it today. Our constitution says that Italy rejects war as a means to solve conflicts. And as a local entity, we are the closest body to people and citizens. We feel the duty to be here today, to be here with you who are studying history of the last decades that often is not delved in enough. We need to remember the past so that we don't have to ask ourselves, do we have to send weapons or not? But the history of Sarajevo had already taught us that if we ask why after the Second World War did we ask to have authoritative and strong institutions to find solutions before war started. And today, in 2022, we are still here asking the same thing. Do we have to send weapons or not? Sarajevo had been throughout the 90s a topic we had reflected about, but not enough. And so today we have many issues to talk about. For example, the economic interests of the industry of war, armaments. They concern what we as citizens want and must keep asking Europe, the UN, the institutions, our government, so that peace-making paths are set up, starting from a different paradigm, not that of arms, but of people, because it's people under the bombs. It's our universities, the universities of the cities, the libraries, the schools and hospitals that are hit. Exactly the things that every local administration, and here I would like to thank and give my regards to the colleague from Sarajevo, Deputy Mayor Mr. Bajic, for talking about how important it is to build peace, to manage a local entity that eventually, for the interest of the industry of war, is destroyed. It destroys the dignity of people asking to live a happy life. So I would like to thank all the people who are organizing this event with us. I would like to thank you for being here today, and let everything that will be told today to enter your thoughts and ask your teachers to keep working with you on this. Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor, for these words. I'm sorry that I already have to say goodbye. And I have to say goodbye to our guest from Sarajevo, but we don't have much time. Our schedule is very strict. So I would like to reflect the words of the councillor, who underlined the tragic nature of each conflict of war. Each conflict is dirty, and the first who are hit are the civilians. That's why, together with the organizers of this event, we thought we would spend now 1 minute in silence to remember the victims of all wars. I ask you to stand up, please, and to spend this minute in silence. Words are important, but silence is equally important.
Grazie. Grazie a tutti.
Thanks. Thank you all.
Chiedo di salire sul palco a Stefano Balducci.
I would like to ask Stefano Balducci to join me on stage from Banca Etica. And together with him, Benedetto Zaccaria, professor in the University of Padova. He was telling me a few minutes ago that he signed his contract in these last few days. So he's a recent acquisition of the university of this beautiful city. Stefano, you have the floor. Thank you. Good morning. First of all, good morning, everybody. This is the first picture I would like to show you. In preparing this presentation, I found something very nice, quite funny, which is on the left side of the screen. If you look for peace on the internet, if you look for images, it's very easy to find songs for peace, drawings, so many things for peace dedicated to children. Speaking to you, you are teenagers and young adults. About peace is more complicated. It seems like it's something harder to do. In the other part of the image, there's something I find very important, because the Balkan Wars were often defined as religious wars. But if you see this picture, if you take a look at this picture, it is clear that the symbols of the main religions can contribute to write the word peace. And you can find your place in this image, even if you don't have a religion, because there's a dove, for instance, which symbolizes peace here, whereas other birds are used around the world. In the morning, we said that this is the program of today with the flag of Yugoslavia. And we'll talk about dissolution. That's why I chose a rusty image. We're going to talk mainly about peace, using the occasion of April the 5th. There are a few words you're going to hear, or perhaps have already heard, frequently. Words you know, or that can be somewhat complicated, such as nationalism, reconciliation, and there's one I would like to share with you, and that's dirt, which is not actually a Slav word. It gets to Bosnia through Turkish and Persian, and it means, well, it's not really easy to translate. It's actually when a person smiles, but if you look deep into their eyes, you see pain. Perhaps in the Balkans it's still like this. And perhaps it's hard for us as well to smile completely, because 30 years on, the situation is the same. 30 years ago, they would play Salo in the debris in Sarajevo. And the very same thing happened a couple of weeks ago in Kharkov. So, if I may use another image, another picture, I prefer wheat fields to battlefields. If you read The Little Prince, you may see it right away. But microfinance, microcredit, and support to companies can do a lot for agriculture. And through agriculture, through micro-entrepreneurship, you can do a lot for a society to live better and be better organized without needing wars. Though we hear about smart bombs or targeted attacks, this is no video game, and there's people dying, really. And often that is due to nationalism. And Ivan Čolović, a Serbian sociologist, says that not only nationalism kills, but the killings made in its name nationalize, and so further feed the vicious circle of violence. This discussion on nationalism, on misunderstanding ideals and ideology, has taken place here as well. Educators such as Don Lorenzo Milani invited to avoid confusion between the death of an aggressor and their victims. He invited to not be poisoned by a hatred propaganda without treading on human ideals that go well beyond the idea of your nation. So this is the meaning of my interventions. There were aggressors and victims. This is not what we're going to talk about today. We want to prop a dialogue between the parties that are now in an armed conflict in the Ukraine, that were in Yugoslavia, where the cultural and social conflict perhaps is not fully over. And this is why we're not going to use the scales of justice. We do not want to weigh who's suffered the most. We don't want to count losses on one side or the other, because we believe that pain is huge everywhere, even in those who pull the trigger, not only in those who suffer the losses. I'd rather believe that anybody's tears, anybody who had the courage to cry them, can offer something new and original, as you can see in the other half of the picture. There's something we can discover in those tears to which we can give a new meaning, like the civilians in Sarajevo did, where there were holes from mortars. Sarajevo's citizens give a new meaning by turning them into flowers. This is called Sarajevo Rose. And I would like to conclude with this quote from Peppino Impastato, who is a person your teachers should tell you about. He used to say that peace is not an object of free intellectual choice nor artistic vacation. It's a material and psychological need. It's not just a desire, it's a need, and a very concrete one too. If we really want everybody to be free from need and fear, like the Human Rights Declaration mentions. And you can do it every day with your daily choices and small acts, like the fruit we will hear from Radmila Jarkovic later on. Thank you. Thank you, Stefano Baldussi. I was touched by the image of the lion and the lamb, because it has a very important, a very strong interreligious meaning too. In the Balkans, there's a very strong Muslim community, Harivets, and one of their symbols is a lion. With a gazelle, so it made me think. It made me think of that, the image you showed. Now we have a small video. Well, you're probably too young to remember, but it was a summary, like there used to be in the 70s and 80s, that were summaries of the subjects that when you hadn't studied for the whole year, you would try and study on these sort of booklets. So this video is a summary of Yugoslav disgregation, very synthetically, of course. And then I'm going to ask Benedetto Zaccaria to do his presentation. So we're asking him to take us through this historic reconstruction, what happened in a very short time. So please. On May 4th, 1980, Marshal Josip Broz Tito died. He was the president of the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, a state constituted by 6 republics and 2 autonomous provinces, where 7 languages were spoken, 2 alphabets were in use, Latin and Cyrillic, and believers of 4 religions coexisted. After his death, in a context of growing economic crisis and institutional stalemate, internal contrasts between the various components of the federation heightened. The end of the Cold War and the collapse of communist regimes translated Yugoslavia into the emergence of nationalist leaderships, without any willingness to negotiate solutions to divide the country. Nationalists wanted to create homogeneous states on the remains of an ethnically composite federation. In 1991, Slovenia and Croatia declared their independence from Yugoslavia. In Slovenia, the clashes with the Federal Army last for a few days. In Croatia, on the other hand, a long war starts, and it continues until the summer of 1995. Here, the considerable Serb minority that opposed with arms to the secession from Yugoslavia is finally forced to flee. In Bosnia-Herzegovina, a referendum on independence in 1992 resulted in the breach in the most multi-ethnic republic of the Federation. The Muslim and Croatian communities vote in favor of the secession, while the Bosnian Serbs boycott the consultation. So the bloodiest war of the Yugoslav dissolution starts, with around 100,000 victims, over 2 million refugees and displaced, and a new genocide in Europe. In 1995, the Daytona the Dayton peace agreements are signed and they put an end to the conflict, but they do not solve the problems of the country, which is now placed under the international protection to ensure its reconstruction and the return of refugees. Meanwhile, in Kosovo, the autonomous province of Serbia, the conflict has pitted two main communities, Albanians and Serbs, for years on the issue of the autonomy cancelled by Serbian President Milosevic in 1989. The escalation of violence against the Albanian community in Kosovo involved the international community. After attempts at a diplomatic solution, in 1999, NATO started a bombing campaign on Serbia, Montenegro, and Kosovo. With the withdrawal of the Yugoslavian army from Kosovan territory, an international protectorate was created. War in Kosovo destabilizes the neighboring Republic of Macedonia, which was independent since 1992. The request for greater rights by the Albanian minority led to armed clashes in 2001, and after several months of war, the international community urged the parties to sign the agreements to put an end to the conflict. And again, open wounds are left and an unstable political context too. In 2006, Serbia and Montenegro, the last two republics of Yugoslavia, which had remained united up to that moment, separated. Lastly, on February 17, 2008, Kosovo declared its independence from Serbia. 15 years of conflicts severely affected the multi-ethnic nature of the region, provoking the death of at least 150,000 people, with millions of refugees fleeing their homes and huge destruction. On the ashes of Yugoslavia, 7 new states were created, out of which only Slovenia and Croatia are members of the EU. The others are still going through the difficult transition to democracy, some in their extreme fragility, economic and institutional terms, are still under international protection. Thank you. You have the floor. Thank you and good morning, everybody. To many of you, and I'm thinking of students mainly, Bosnia-Herzegovina may seem something far away, even exotic. But if we take a look at a European map, we see that Bosnia-Herzegovina is right at the heart of the Balkans, and the Balkans are quite in a central place in Europe. Somehow we may say that Bosnia-Herzegovina is at the heart of Europe. Historically speaking, it is the same. You certainly know that the trigger for the First World War was pulled in Sarajevo in July 1914, which led the whole of the continent in the First World War. And the historical memory of Europe, Bosnia-Herzegovina and the Balkans in general, is unfortunately known for a memory of war and violence. A great academic, Maria Todorova from Bulgaria, even coined the word Balkanism to define European stereotypes of the Balkans as a place of blood, war, and violence. Actually, the history of Bosnia-Herzegovina is a European story with the same tragedies as everywhere else. What happened 30 years ago in Bosnia-Herzegovina, as we saw, was a conflict based on the concept of ethno-nationalism. That is to say, an ideology excluding and canceling everything that does not belong to a specific national group. The history of the Yugoslavian dissolution started in the 1980s. Bosnia belonged to a larger federation of states, which was called Yugoslavia. It was a socialist republic led by one single communist party called the Yugoslavia Communist League, whose leader was Josip Broz Tito. He was a partisan hero, and the only leader of the federation since 1945, when it was created, until 1980, the year in which he died. For many years and decades, Yugoslavia was a stable federation in which several ethnic groups were able to live together: Slovenians, Croatians, Serbians, people from Montenegro, Kosovo, Macedonia. In 1980, Tito died and left the federation without a charismatic leader. The country entered a very difficult economic period, which exacerbated tensions and rivalries among republics. It was an economic crisis that was close to the ones many Eastern communist countries were experiencing. 1989 arrives, a year of important events, because the communist leaderships of Poland and Hungary collapsed. In November 1989, the Berlin Wall collapsed. And 1989, the Yugoslav Communist Party loses its power. The federal government, based in Belgrade, loses its power too. Moreover, the federation is marked by the rise of huge nationalism based on their ethnicities. In Serbia, with Slobodan Milosevic as a leader, with Great Serbia and its myth, and in Slovenia, with Ranjo Tuđman and Milan Kučan in Croatia. Each federal republic declared their self-determination and require democratic elections, the first of which take place between April and May 1990 in Slovenia and Croatia. And in independent leaderships, when? So independence is declared in 1991. Yet independence declarations were not easy. And why is that? Because within Croatia specifically, there was a large Serbian minority, and the Serbian Republic was against the idea that this minority was left to itself and not protected. Milosevic's leadership became the opposer opposer of independence declarations. An armed conflict followed in Slovenia in June 1991, and a larger conflict between the Yugoslav army and Croatia, which affected the regions in Croatia which were mainly populated and inhabited by Serbians. Europe stared powerlessly. They were somehow waking up from the delusion that in 1989 history had ended. And they saw blood flow a few kilometers away from the Italian border. The main countries in Western Europe tried to mediate without any success. Faced with the deterioration of the situation, they saw in Milosevic the main culprit of the conflict and recognized the independence of Croatia and Slovenia in January 1992. Yet, Western countries were also recognizing the independence of Bosnia-Herzegovina without realizing the fact that nationalism in Bosnia-Herzegovina was a guarantee for war. So Bosnia-Herzegovina in 1992 declared itself as an independent state. But this referendum did not see the participation of 1/3 of the population, that is to say, the Serbians. So paramilitary groups from Serbia declared their secession from Bosnia-Herzegovina and wanted to cleanse the areas with a Serbian majority from the Bosnian population. And the same happened in Croatia. So this war was among the three ethnic communities and religious communities. And the key term to understand this conflict is ethnic cleansing. The international community looked on powerlessly, guiltily so. The conflict was covered by journalists, newspapers, the media, and the televisions of all European countries showed the horrible pictures with the terrible effects of the conflict on the populations, be it in Serbia, in Croatia, in Bosnia. They were just the victims of a sightless ideology fed by leaders that coldly led the region to catastrophe. The European media told about the Sarajevo siege, bombed by grenades of Serbians around the city and snipers, or ethnic cleansing against the Muslim enclaves in Serbian majority areas. The most famous one is that of Srebrenica, where in July 1995, the male component, over 10,000 people, were massacred without any action by the United Nations forces. And they were there to protect them and did not prevent ethnic cleansing. So the war in Bosnia and Herzegovina ended, as we saw, between August and September 1995, after airstrikes by NATO. That was the first military intervention by NATO. At the time I was 8. I was at the seaside with my family, and I remember the planes from the military bases in the area. The conflict was concluded with Dayton peace agreements that left Bosnia and Herzegovina as a devastated and divided country. They created Bosnia as an independent state, but actually it is constituted by two federal entities, the Srpska Republic and the Croatian Muslim Federation. The international community intervened to reconstruct the country under the High Representative of the UN. Political scientists studying Bosnia-Herzegovina after Dayton highlighted its very fragile internal composition. The constitutional system, to prevent the power of one of the three components, prevents its actions. And the ethno-nationalist framework was criticized. So the post-Dayton framework preserves the very same divisions that led to the war. Bosnia-Herzegovina applied to become a member of the EU, but that's something very, very far away. On the one side, the EU has set aside the enlargement agenda, and on the other hand, Bosnia-Herzegovina is a hostage of its own nationalist forces. If you read recent news about Bosnia, knows about secessionist threats by Srpska Republic, which would open again a Pandora's box, also considering the Philo-Russian attitudes. So what conclusions can I draw as an historian 30 years on? The first is that war in Bosnia-Herzegovina, as the wars that followed, was a European war, based on the ethno-nationalist principle that was clear in the 19th and 20th century Europe. In terms of violence, it was not that exceptional, besides easy comments of observers of the time to the ease with which the Balkans went to violence. It's the same actually in Italy, France, Germany. No European region was immune to violence on a national basis. As a great French thinker used to say, Simone Weil, in the moment in which the political and spiritual authorities place a category of human beings outside of those for whom life has a price, there is nothing more natural for men than to kill. When you can kill without paying the price for it, you do it. There's an abyss between armed people and disarmed people. The second conclusion is that political leaderships that are not willing to compromise and aim at independence on ethnic and religious base can easily lead to the outbreak of violent conflicts, whose very first victim is civilian population. In the case of Bosnia, there were no long-dated hatreds. It was the consequence of political and military choices that were very rational, which only had advantages to consolidate their political power from a violent transition. Finally, studying and thinking of Bosnia is a way to think and rethink the tragic history of Europe, which continues and accelerates in these weeks, and also to reflect on the limits of nationalism and the clash between nationalities, and the need to find new forms of governance to prevent wars and conflicts, because it is important to prevent them. Each war is a failure for diplomacy, and solving and concluding a war once it has started is something historically hard, which can only happen after shedding way too much innocent blood. So to prevent war, it is important to think, and reflect on how to prevent it. Because after all, as Simone Weil used to say, thinking is a heroic act. Thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you, Benedetto Zaccaria, especially for stressing how war in Bosnia wasn't and isn't different from us, and is deeply rooted in Europe of yesterday and of today, given what is happening. So it shouldn't be conceived or perceived as something far, because it's very close to us, and we should all feel the responsibility for it. A responsibility that in those years many felt. Thousands of people were involved, starting from local entities, associations, parishes, involved in solidarity initiatives with ex-Yugoslavia and Bosnia. It emerged that 2 million people were forced to abandon their homes in Bosnia. Half the population of Bosnia-Herzegovina was forced to leave. They moved to other places or abroad. Many were housed, welcomed in Italy, and the reception was very warm, also from the legal system, because they were given a legal status that was recognized. Often our Europe and European Union, as we've seen, struggles or even puts barriers to this reception of refugees running from the war. And luckily, these barriers have been overcome with Ukraine. We welcome all refugees. This topic is dealt with in this short video, which is entitled "What is Left," and talks about a small city of Friuli Cervignano and its reception. The video is by Maria Silvia Bartoli. I would like to thank our guests, and I leave you to this video. I'm sorry, this was not necessary. It was useless. My best friend is a Serb. I'm a Muslim. So what? Yes, I've been coming here since 1997. It's been 15 years since the last refugees who were guests of these barracks left. It was October 1991. They stayed for 6 years, from 1991 to 1997. I come here because there is a colony of cats that has been less and less. When the war started, we all thought that when the blue helmets came, everything would have solved in 1 week, 1 month, blue beret, sorry. I was 18 years old here. I tried to replicate my room in my country. That's how it was in the barracks. I remember the lady who had a room with clothes there. It was not real for me because I had nothing, and then I found a room full of clothing. I was like hungry. We've spent 4 years then. I remember the very loud noises because the barracks are open rooms. When it was storming, I jumped because I felt like they were shooting. I felt like a traitor because, yes, I was here and I wasn't suffering with my relatives and friends. And that gap still remains because for them, I will always be the one who was got rescued, didn't feel what war was. And that's what I hear them say. We pretended to live a normal life because it was a small city. The cooks knew all of our names. It makes you understand that you're not just a number. There were many of us, and this is really a pleasure. Because many people say, oh, yes, those refugees, there were many of us, but each of us had its individuality. The very important element of this video is to understand that behind numbers, behind the figures that we gave, that the deputy mayor of Sarajevo gave, he started with numbers, but there are people behind numbers, there are stories, there are relationships, unique relationships and stories. Recently, as you may have read on the papers or news, there are debates on increasing the budget on military expenses at an Italian level. Talking about numbers, there are 4 million people already fleeing the conflict in Ukraine. In 1 month, 4 million, twice more than the 2 million people who were forced to flee Bosnia. We fear that, we expect that approximately 10 millions will flee, will have fled in 1 month total. So 10 million people with their stories, their relationships. Sometimes I would like our country, our communities to be more willing. And I'm not talking about sending weapons or not. So we will be willing to find resources to welcome these people. Luckily, so far, we found resources thanks to the solidarity of many families. But as a community, we also need to regroup for the following months, and unfortunately, I'd say maybe for the next years as well. We talked about stories. I would like to mention something that I forgot today. Luckily, we're here in person all together. We can look in the eyes, not fully in the face, since we are still masked. But we can look at each other in the eyes. But we also have people connected from the Facebook page of the municipality of Padua in English language and on the YouTube page of the Padua municipality in Italian language. So we have a larger audience today because we have a virtual community with us. We were talking about individual stories and about social protagonists, and I would like to call on stage Elma Zukic, President of AMFI, Association of the Institutions of Microfinance of Bosnia-Herzegovina. Welcome, Elma.
Thank you.
Then I would like to call Brunilda Isai, Secretary General of Albanian Microfinance Association from Tirana. And then Katarzyna Pawlak, who's the CEO of the Microfinance Center of Warsaw, Poland. Then we have connected with us remotely Stefania Vizzaccaro, who's responsible for the office of the Italian Agency for Cooperation and Development of Tirana, oversees a number of projects across the Balkans. And then we should have Rada Žarković, but I don't see her. Okay, we have Rada Žarković, founder of cooperative Zajedno, which produces fruits and vegetables, grows fruits and vegetables. I would like to start from our guests in the room, in person, and then I will ask questions to our virtual guests. So the first question is, talking to the young people we have in the audience, I would like you to tell them about your work, your business. Okay, as I was saying, these are people working in microfinance, microcredit, local development, starting from the grassroots. I would like you to tell us about your activity, your organization that made you especially proud of what you do in these years. So this is the first question I'm asking you. And then for what you expect to be the greatest challenge for the next years, or what concerns you, but also gives you more motivation to work. Let's start from Elma Zukic.
Okay, thank you. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Elma Zukic. I'm the president of the Association of Microfinance Institution in B&H, AMFI. I hope you are all healthy and fine. I'm happy because I can see lots of young people now today with us. I bring you the greetings from the Bosnia and Herzegovina, who will never forget what Republic Italy and its citizen has done for our homeland in the moment of our need. Thank you. Today, thank you. Today, I'm here as a citizen of the city of Sarajevo and the president of the association which support 26 microcredit organizations in B&H. First of all, I would like also to thank to the municipality of Padova and to our friends from Banca Etica for the invitation and to have the opportunity to talk you with today. Although we have already heard a lot about Sarajevo, I can proudly confirm that Sarajevo has long been known as the multi-ethnic and multi-religious center of the Europe. We are right to say that Sarajevo is Jerusalem of the Europe. In old town of Sarajevo, in a radius of only 200 meters away, there are 4 sacral monuments, buildings, of the monotheistic religion, such as a cathedral, a synagogue, an Orthodox church, and a mosque. So close to each other, they lived, entering the people during the many years before, and I hope also in the future. Sarajevo went through this long siege, as we talk today, for 44 months. Can you imagine? You are now going to the school, doing your homework, people are going to every day to the jobs, and that someone just as I can remember, I want to go to school that day, and I go out, and I can see the planes which are bombing the Sarajevo, and It was a terrible situation. Someone just stopped you, your whole world. But today we want to talk about the peace. And also, I want to talk to you about the microfinancing in Bosnia and Herzegovina. About the role and the contribution of the microfinance sector in the after-war development of B&H. There were a large number in Bosnia of domestic companies that also worked before the war on international markets. It was a very large company which employed a large number of the citizens. During the war, these giants were destroyed and devastated totally completed. After this 4 years war, most people don't know what to do. After 4 years of war, you don't have jobs, you cannot support your family, your children, yourself. So, somehow the microfinance companies abroad and charities come to the Bosnia and help to the people. And after some time, they saw that they must do something, not just to charity them, to help them how to provide everyday's benefits for itself and for its family. You know, one old proverb says that if you give a man a fish, you will feed him for 1 day. If you teach him how to fish this, you will provide the feed for him for his whole his life. So that on somehow was the role of the microfinance sector in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Microcredit is now an organized, we are part of the financial sector, which are very well established after the war in 1996. There is also help us the World Bank and lots of NGOs and international institutions to establish this sector. It can be said that in the B&H there was a general and favorable climate for establishing the sector. Also, the government helped us after some years to establish the framework of the law. Now we can provide the funds for the most vulnerable categories of the people, such as women, young population which want to start their entrepreneurship activities. And also today we mentioned agriculture. I believe that agriculture can be much more promoted in our country. 66% of our portfolio of microfinance sector in Bosnia and Herzegovina is dedicated to the people who lives on the village. And of which 42% of them are women and 22% of them are young people, and we are very proud on these figures. Also, I want to share with you the information how important this sector is for the normal, regular people in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We approximately have in Bosnia 3 million of people, and we calculated this that this our one loan can provide every day's needed for one family with 3 members. It's estimated that we are directly or indirectly have an impact on 20% of the population in B&H. That's very big and important figures, how this organizing these activities will be. But still, we need lots of other things to do in Bosnia. After these years, we are now focused to development service projects that support green financing and environmental friendly activities, strengthening energy efficiency, philanthropy, all the time educating the client, not just provide them the loans. We provide them education in this period, most about environmental terms and digital education. But also continuously, it is very important for us as a small country to find funds for all of these activities. So.
Grazie Elma Zukic.
Thank you, Elma Zukic. Now I would like to tell the young people here that often in Italy, if a young person has an entrepreneurial idea, it's not so obvious to find loans, also for small amounts of money. I'm not talking about large amounts of money for big startup companies. It's not so easy in Italy. In other countries like Bosnia and Herzegovina of the last years, if there weren't any projects like this, it would be a mission impossible when actually opportunities are there, ideas are there, the territory is extremely rich. We heard that 20% of the Bosnian population, 2 out of 10 people, enjoy these loans. So these loans have really helped and made the difference.
You mentioned one very good obstacle, that our loans are small. They are 150,000 euro. It's 3,000 km in our local currency. It's a small portion, but it's really help to the people.
Bene. Adesso darei la parola a Brunilda Isai. Ci spostiamo in un'altra area dei Balcani, in Albania, ma voi avete progetti anche altrove o solo in particolare in Albania?
In Albania, mostly. Okay, I'm going to switch to English because I'm feeling most comfortable with. I understand a lot of Italian, by the way, because we're just across the sea, and it's a real pleasure to be here in any case, and my most sincere congratulations for this very deep reflection on the war and what is the impact of it even now, 3 decades after the war. The war is over. For us, not only sentimentally, but also from the practical point of view, we were raised during those wars. We have a lot of traces following us along life, which have made us stronger, I think, but also more understanding of the whole life circumstances and the difficulties that life itself presents. So I know that for the young generation in Italy, but not only, also in Albania, in Bosnia, wars are sometimes just a past, and they cannot grasp the whole meaning out of it. And that's why it's important that we discuss and we remember what happened. Albania, as some of you may know, has passed one of the wildest dictatorships. It went on for more than 45 years. It has taken a lot of people's lives. A lot of damage has been done socially, economically, and we had to start over from scratch in the 90s, a very disturbed period, you know, with the wars from the ex-Yugoslavia, with Kosovo suffering one of those. And we were kind of separated because of the dictatorship, so we were not kind of feeling and touching the war, but we were always there and present for the whole ex-Yugoslavian population. And let's not forget that the ones that suffer are just the people. You know, eventually all ethnics, all the nationalities, they are suffering the same. Whoever is the aggressor, the people eventually, and right now the people of Ukraine are suffering, the people of Russia, most of them are suffering. So at the very broad base, war is not good for anyone. So coming back to what we are doing in Albania, we are pretty much the same position with Bosnia. We have a very dynamic and, let's say, vibrating market. Promoting microfinance is fairly easy because what you do is basically you create opportunities for the people. And it is microfinance is for the ones that they have not access to the mainstream financing, to the mainstream banks. And if you give them some means to create a family business, to start a professional life, to be a freelancer, you kind of change their life by adding opportunities. And these opportunities, if taken, they can totally change someone's life. And this is the aspect that I guess all of us like the most about working with microfinance. And compared to the other sectors, financial sectors, this one is not commercial. This is mostly social. So you feel that you are making a difference. You feel that you are helping people, not only economically. We talk about green finance. We talk about new enterprises. Digitalization are all aspects that are promoting not only living standards, but new ways of doing business. So this is really exciting, and we are very happy to kind of contribute into this dimension. Whereas, okay, regarding challenges, I'm sure that everyone now wants that and wishes that the conflict is over. I mean, the conflict in Ukraine, and not be spread in waves and shatter everybody's lives in Europe. So this one, I think, is wishful thinking, and let's hope very soon the people will sit down and will find solutions out of it. Whereas for the coming years, we have to think prosperity under a changing world and changing circumstances. So now the society is mostly digital. The information is very easily accessible. It is there. We have to know what we do with this information. We have to appreciate the fact that we have the opportunity to be educated. Most of the people, they don't have this opportunity. So let's take it and make the best out of it by creating a future for ourselves. And of course, we are here to help. We are supporters in microfinance and financial world, basically. We are enablers, but it is the free spirit of enterprise, the free initiative, the free will of the people, young people like yourselves, that want to develop themselves and want to contribute in the society, that really drives the future for all of us. So there's a lot of hope placed in the new generation, and I'm sure they will, understanding the past, they will make the best out of it and create a better world for themselves. So after all, this is all our mission, to live, as our very dear friend Gabriele says, to leave the world better than we found it. So thank you very much for being here. It's always a pleasure to sit down and discuss, and especially in this surrounding and setting, it was really amazing. So.
Grazie. Grazie.
Thank you, Brunilda Hisai. Thank you for being able to convey to all of us the joy and the perception of the privilege of living, working in a field where you make the difference. You are in contact with people, and a small loan that may look very little money to us can positively affect lives, because it makes people independent and able to go their own way. So I think that organizations that work with this joy and awareness have an added value, and they really contribute to build relationships and to improve this world, which really needs improvement. Now I give the floor to Katarzyna Pawlak. She comes from Poland, on the borders with Ukraine. It's the country that is housing the highest number of refugees. So I would like to ask her to tell us what she does, and also in the current context, in the current situation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. And it's a pleasure to be here and actually also leave the frontline country and be a little bit away from the conflict. And this is happening, and as we heard, it's been happening. We are commemorating the Sarajevo siege, but I mean, conflicts are happening over the world, and we are just closer or further down them, but we never know what may happen tomorrow. So I wanted really to congratulate and acknowledge the organizers to having this discussion today, especially, you know, with young people, because you are creating the reality of tomorrow, and having this awareness and knowledge about the history and underlying politics and factors, it's very important. I was just, you know, sitting with my guests last week that fled Irpien. You probably heard about the city, which is totally destroyed, with Nastya, a young lady, and her daughter Sonia, who is actually your age. She would finish her final high school this year. You know, she was studying very hard, you know, have a lot of plans, you know, for her university. She was thinking either to study in Poland or Czech Republic. She's a very good student, you know, studying English, various languages, Polish. And, you know, just overnight, all these plans, you know, you wake up and you have to really run to the shelter, you know, you leave everything behind. And you don't know what will happen tomorrow, right? And you know, they took really long way to come, you know, to escape. And actually, it was Sonia, so the daughter. She really motivated her mother, because all the neighbors were saying it's too dangerous for two women to leave the shelter and drive, you know, to the border and flee. But she really motivated, and she said, you know, she had this power and this energy to you know, at least take this control of her life in this very difficult situation. And they made it. They spent over 30 hours on the border. Finally, you know, got to Poland and ended up in a safe place. And she continues studying, you know, even though she knows there will be no final exam this year for her. So very probably she will lose her year, you know, she will not be able to go to university. But she's safe, and she's really committed, you know, to do whatever she can in this situation, you know. And I am mentioning this situation because, you know, here we can discuss and commemorate, and it's very important, but you never know what will happen tomorrow and how this conflict will continue. Coming back to microfinance, you know, I have a great pleasure to work in microfinance for over 20 years now, and I am leading a a regional network that actually associates great organizations like Elma's organizations, Bruna's organization. Banca Etica is also our member. So we have 95 members in over 60 countries, you know, that are devoted, you know, to promoting this idea that Elma mentioned and Brunilda, you know, like how we can help people, because there is so much energy. It's this energy of Sonia, of Nastya. They really want, you know, the soon as possible to go back to Ukraine and rebuild the country and take control of their lives and build better future for themselves. You know, for Sonia to study, for Nastya to rebuild Irpien and you know, sustain her family. And this is, you know, what microfinance is offering. You know, our network was created actually in December. It will be 25 years ago. To support these processes of transition from communism to market economy. And over this process, as we heard, we had many various challenges, including the conflict in the Balkans, but not only, in other parts of the region as well, of Europe, Central Asia, and where we operate. And our members, I mean, they do in all those countries, you know, the same that Bruna and Elma shared with you. you know, it's really about like everyday people. They just want to put bread on the table. They want to put in use their skills as I don't know, hairdressers, shop owners, small farmers, and this is, you know, what microfinance help them to do, and you know, really with hard work to build a future for their families, their communities through this hard work, and very often in very difficult situation. So, you know, when you ask me about the challenge is that microfinance goes where there is challenge, and we work in this difficult situation. But I think what is really optimistic is, you know, to see this energy of people, you know, really thinking how they can take control of their lives, even in such difficult situation where, you know, all the decisions are made somewhere else and you have very limited area of influence. And also the community, you know, like of institutions that are part of our network, it's really about learning, sharing, helping each other, you know. Looking ahead, you know, I'm so concerned, you know. We just helped to our member in Ukraine, Hope Ukraine, which is a microfinance institution there, to evacuate their staff from east of Ukraine. And of course, they had to cease the operations. And the question is, what is happening to their clients? You know, many of them went to fight, right? Many of them fled, some are displaced within the country, you know, 10 million people are displaced, but many people really stayed, you know, they stayed and they hope for better future. And I think it's very important for us, you know, to think also how each of us can contribute, you know, in our lives, how we can help. You know, there is really a big mobilization of Polish people, you know, everybody is trying to contribute in whatever way we can, right? Either giving shelter, or organizing food, or organizing transport, people going even behind the border and bringing people. But I think it's really important to think about it, not like just watch at those photos, you know, and we are flooded by really terrible pictures, and but also thinking what each of us can do. And I've also heard a lot of great stories in Italy where actually students, youth are supporting the current conflict through various means, either donating or helping those that reach Italy. So there is really a way to be there and not to be indifferent. And I think this is what I wanted to call to every one of us, not to be indifferent, because this is always what supports, you know, people out there who are under conflict.
I would like to thank Katarzyna for her invitation to not be indifferent. I would now like to ask Saverio Frazzoli, who's replacing Stefania Vizzaccaro from AIX. So good morning and welcome. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting us. I wanted to ask if you could synthetically introduce or briefly introduce the activities carried out by AIX for local development. I'm very pleased to be a part of this meeting. AIX has been in the Balkans for 30 years. Briefly, from 2016, it has a new name, basically. And at first, Italian cooperation participated into emergency activities to help the population before, during, and after the war, then the following decade for reconstruction and rebuilding, with several projects carried out by the NGOs, civil society, associations, local governments, international organizations. For instance, the Bridge of Mostar, which was inaugurated by the Italian President of the Republic in 2004. Then in the following 10 years, we participated in preparing the entry of some Balkan states to the EU. First of all, Albania and Bosnia and Herzegovina. And now we're working with around 40 projects in Albania, around 10 in Bosnia. And some of these projects are carried out by NGOs or in collaboration with the ministries and local governments and international organizations supporting small producers, agriculturers, farmers, breeders. They work in the social field with associations working for women's rights, minorities. So there's many things to do. Unfortunately, we cannot do everything, but we try to do our part to help these countries enter and join the EU and improve their level of life and meet the needs of the population. I really appreciated the previous speeches, especially Professor Zaccaria, that explained very well the history of the conflict. And I would like to remind the students who are here today with us the importance of working together in solidarity, how close the Balkans are. They're very, very close to Italy. And we share so many historical and cultural ties. In Albania, many people speak Italian very well and know Italian history very well, our television. So it's important to work together and cooperate in the name of partnership and solidarity. And no one saves themselves alone. Seeing destruction in the Ukraine is terrible, thinking about all the efforts we have to carry out to build and create something, helping small producers, associations in improving their life and work. As for microfinance, we don't have specific projects for the Balkans, but we have cooperated with Banca Etica in other regions of the country, and it is certainly fundamental to support people and small producers and small groups of women. To promote new ways to get new incomes. Thank you very much. Thank you. Of course, if there is any question, I would like to highlight for our students that the world of cooperation sometimes has its contradictions. Sometimes there are actions when a conflict is there, and then several organizations disappear in the following years. But this is not the case for Southeastern Europe. It also happens, certainly, but relations between Italy and these countries are long-standing. They started in the 90s and are still ongoing in different shapes and forms, both at the governmental level, but also in terms of associations, groups, NGOs, local communities, and even single people. So it's relations that have been ongoing for 30 years. So 30 years of relationships between our countries. Regarding long-standing relations, I would like to ask Rada Žarković from the Zajedno cooperative if she could tell us about this peace jams. Can you hear me all right? Yeah. Good morning, everybody. I'm really touched and happy to be with you, at least online. And first of all, I would like to say hi to my friends that are now my family. I cannot list them all, but hi Gianni, Gianna, Francesco, Paolo, hi Don Bizzotto, hi to the many people I love there. And I would like to send out thoughts and memories to the people who are no longer with us. Ciao Michele, Marianita, Silvano. I hope that you will continue living in all of our hearts as long as pacifism and solidarity live. In a few days, actually on Sunday, I will turn 62. And in these 62 years, I've spent half of my life in war, because war is not over for me. War in Bosnia-Herzegovina, not only in Sarajevo. I'm sorry I keep hearing just Sarajevo, because war was in Yugoslavia. It was in the whole of Bosnia-Herzegovina. And this war affected, in several ways, over 23 million people, not just the citizens of Sarajevo. And I have to say this out loud, because perhaps Sarajevo is a symbol, but unfortunately, in Bosnia-Herzegovina, there are communities that are still living in harsher conditions than they're living in Sarajevo. I would like to thank Stefano and everybody for organizing this meeting, especially Stefano, who insisted on me talking, even though I told him I'm not in full agreement with today's topic, because I have several questions, actually, even to my colleagues that presented the world of microcredit. One of the questions, the fundamental issues for me, is what is the interest rate they receive from the clients, the farmers, the people who access microcredit. I must say that its interest rate, according to the data I found, is on average 25%. For farmers, it is around 30% now. But there have been cases in which this interest rate fared between 30 to 60%. And it was impressive when the interest rate went beyond 140%. Microcredit Association in Srpska Republic, in the ministry, they did not want to tell me which one. They reached over 250%. I live in a country where thousands of pensioners live with €100 a month. The average pension is a little above €200, where microcredit managers have around 2,000 and 1,500 euro incomes per month. So these are facts. And I have to say this. It's nice to stay here and talk about aid and helping people out. But when my parents, this is an example from my family, when my parents received 2,000 marks from Microcredit, they had to pay back 4,000. The idea was good. But if Yunus saw this, he was the creator of this idea, he saw this from the other world, he would come back and frown upon all of us. We need to be honest. We need to rethink the whole system of cooperation and see what are the things that remained from what we started with and where we're at today. Anyway, in my life, I've come a long way. My identity along this way was and still is comrade. I'm a pacifist, I'm a feminist, I'm an activist, I'm a woman against war, I'm a woman. But though I'm living in a situation in which war has been ongoing for 30 years, because it's never truly been over, I still feel somewhat a partisan who has to speak up and say things as they are. So I'm sorry if someone feels bad or offended after these words, but I'm talking facts. And I swear that for the situations I've experienced, I've only presented the things that can be found in official documents. I've always been a person that, unfortunately, I don't want to accept many things from fascists, nationalists. Fascists are still everywhere in this world. But I also want to speak the truth of what happens in our cooperation world. Because if we don't speak about these things, you cannot improve them. And I don't want to just offer criticism. I want to present data to see how we can change this. A few days ago, I read that Banca Etica donated €1,000 to a microfinance organization, and I wonder whether Banca Etica asked what interest rate will be applied to the clients, the customers that will take this loan, and if Banca Etica agrees with such rates. Thank you very much, Rada. I'm sorry, but I have to stop you. Thank you, Rada Žarković. I'm sorry I have to stop you, but the time is short. And I wanted to underline two aspects in your speech. First, when Rada tells us that in Bosnia, war is not over, this is a great lesson that we need to learn from conflicts. war in Bosnia was not over in 1995, like we said before, when the Dayton agreements were signed, considering all the contradictions of those agreements. After war, making peace is extremely hard. It would be better to solve issues before with diplomacy. It would be better to reach a compromise before. And this is the great lesson and possible potential of a common project as the EU, where with all the contradictions it may entail, diplomacy always has a space. Unfortunately, the war in Bosnia is not over, and in our website we still publish articles on this. Recently, one on the state television that is at risk of closing because you don't want a single state TV. The other aspect is that the world of cooperation has its own contradictions. We said that words are important, so I believe that several actors in the Balkans use the word microfinance or microfinancing without actually respecting an ethical code that other associations have. Unfortunately, we have a very, very short time. We don't have bells ringing like in school, but our students are, so we cannot go over time. So I would like to ask one of you two things, but super short. First, telling me the interest rate you apply on some of your projects. For our schools, what's an interest rate? It's the extra money you have to pay back besides the money you were lent to get that loan. And if you can tell us about one project to some young person who came to your association with an idea that was financed.
Va bene.
May I have 5 extra minutes afterwards? I'll give you 2. Okay, because I have other 3 guests who have to present their speech. I'm too good. I think this issue could be tackled in the future, rather, because we're already late. My questions were asked without expecting an answer. So this is an issue we need to discuss for a long time and in a very serious way, which is why I didn't even mean for them to tell us our interest rates. I just wanted to underline issues we have here. Okay, but there clearly is an urgency in dealing with this topic. But even for our students here, I would like to hear, for instance, what is the interest rate applied, and one very short example, or just the interest rate.
It is actually a sharp issue, and there is a big discussion about the interest rates in microfinance. It's 3 decades, and we see that the cost of financing is up. So most of the people, I mean customers and non-customers, they point out that it is a lot more costly to take a loan in microfinance rather than to take it from banking institutions. And of course, I really appreciate the intervention and for pointing out this issue, because if we're talking for poor people or for small businesses, family businesses, the high cost of credit, it doesn't help into development. But we have to understand how microfinance works. And if we know that the sector per se has so many challenges and difficulties to exist, and we are like, during COVID times, we were in the verge of existence, because a microfinance institution, in order to give a loan, they take a loan from a banking institution. So they start with a very high cost since they secure the funds. And then is the cost of risk, because they are dealing with the customers that they don't have a lot of payment capacities. There is the cost of retaining that institution, and trust me, if there was a way of keeping the rates down, they would have done already. It's 3 decades that microfinance is active in Albania, in Bosnia, and everywhere. They try to bring the cost down, and the best that they do is still a double-digit figure. So what we want to do right now is cooperate with the state, secure some support from the state for our customers, for the small businesses, secure some sovereign guarantees that will kind of secure the loans, but also bring the loans in a fairer price or in a lower price. I have to say that the state is not very much cooperating with the microfinance institutions, because they are reluctant to provide sovereign guarantees to help the sector. They are reluctant to provide grants and subventions to the small businesses. So there is a lot to be done on the policy side of the issue. The other one is that the businesses themselves, they have a lot to learn. They have a lot to improve. They should kind of learn how to deal with their financial statements. They should be better into governing their businesses in order to represent a lower risk for microfinance. So if we work into all these dimensions, I'm sure that the cost of credit will gradually go down and will be much more favorable, much more acceptable, let's say, for the market.
Thank you, Brunilda. The lesson learned for you students as well in this exchange is that reality is complex and it has to be tackled as such. Thank you very much to all of our guests and for those who were connected online. I would like to invite Don Albino Bizzotto from Beati Costruttori di Pace, Gabriele Giulietti, who is the person in charge of the institutional relations, international relations of Banca Etica. And online, we have Gala Ivkovic from Rondine Città della Pace. So I would like to have Gala first. Oh, sorry, Gala last. I don't know her, but I think she is a little older than our students here. I'm truly sorry already for our guests from this last session. Welcome, Gala Ivkovic. And I would like to leave closure for her. I'm sorry with our guests for the very short time. And with Don Albino Bizzotto, I have to go back to my journalist persona, and I would like to ask him, though we have very short time available, but considering your experience of the early 90s in Bosnia, Herzegovina, the peaceful initiatives, how do you see these weeks, what's happening in the Ukraine, in the heart of Europe? First of all, hi, everybody. Please say hi back. Otherwise, it seems everything is prepared, whereas we need to have a direct relationship. I'm very pleased to meet other people and go back together to a way in which we can be alive in a peaceful attitude. I remember when in the arena in Verona, the mayor of Messina said, "I am peace." There's not a moment in which we can go to war. Never. Not even now. Our brother Pope Francis who's so clear, crystal clear. He's alone. No politician accepts what he says, and he says very simple, normal things with all his life in it. I believe that we should go back to this, first of all. I cannot go work for peace only because there's war. I should work for war not to be there, ever. And to do so, we need to accept to be within the conflict. Before we left off to Sarajevo for the first time in 1992 with a Fiat 500, I met Alex Langer, who had organized the Verona Forum, bringing to Verona all the pacifists from the former Yugoslavia countries who agreed what they could do together. He told me, Albino, please don't go to Sarajevo. It's too dangerous. And I said, yeah, you're right. It is. We're all scared. But how can you leave those people in a world which is not their own? It's hell on earth for them. How can you?
Ma senti, Alex.
So I asked him, Alex, non-violence shall only be used when the army lets you, and when everything is calm, when the conflict is managed, or rather, non-violence is a historical method and is always has always to be applied. We need to say it frankly. If non-violence is an historical method, it has to be applied to all human activities, always. And thus, never, as in the dramatic moment of war, there's victims, injustice, violence, horrible stories you hear. The Pope is right when he says so. So how can I just stay there and look? How can we just bring material aid and then let them have it? After the Second World War, the United Nations were created. And why was that? To avoid war for future generations. So I like to say, when are we going to stop war? When will we take away from war the possibility of existing? We are the future generations. I'm from an ancient generation, so to say, but we're all in this. It has to work. We have to become a sovereign people, not because I belong to one nation or the other, but because we are people together, always, all around the world, not only in the Ukraine, but also all over Africa, the Middle East, and everywhere else. And that's why you understand, I am peace becomes a way of life that lives within all conflicts, loving people. Let's try. And I'll stop here. But if you like, thank you. But if you like, I would be really pleased to tell you about the complexity and beauty and strength that those who came to Sarajevo received, and also brought solidarity to the rest of the country. Rada is right when she says there's not only Sarajevo, there's Mostar, there's initiatives that bring hope and close conflicts before, by betting on children, on schools, for children, instead of being afraid and thinking about revenge, we can improve the situation. because in Sarajevo, your enemies were your neighbors. Between Croatians, Serbians, and Muslims used to live in the same area, in the same neighborhood, in the same block of flats. And I remember when we went to Dobrinja and had children play, and on the other side as well, Elijah, there was a mom listening, and she was saying, we come here and we stay here. And we stay with people, eat and drink together, but every morning a small bus takes people to the other side for let children play together, because children all experience in a different way, but the same experience. There was a woman listening, and a volunteer, Lisa is here, and she knew. She spoke Serbian or Croatian, and this woman started to cry, and she said, "Is anything wrong, ma'am?" No, you should let children play in both sides, but you are having the children of those who killed 2 of my children play. So what can you answer to that? You have to recreate a relationship which is no longer there, and that is the true face of war and peace, making sure that all children grow up differently. Thank you very much.
Vi chiedo scusa.
I'm sorry. I have to go somewhere else, so I'll leave the stage. Thank you.
Thank you for being here with us. Thank you.
Velocissimamente.
Gabriele Giulietti, my question is, since you've been with Banca Etica for many years, how are you dealing with these dramatic situations? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for your question. I have a first answer to give, Rada, otherwise we will be left with a question mark. Yes, we gave 1 million euros to a microfinance association in Bosnia, and there is an interest rate. If you've noticed, the day is made up of associations, cooperatives, but also institutions. The fact that we have the Italian Agency for Cooperation and Development that is under our Ministry for Foreign Affairs, that promotes development worldwide, allows us to say, and later we'll have a workshop in the bank with the colleagues from Bosnia, Albania, and Poland on microfinance. Microfinance is expensive, but if there's nothing coming, no aid from the state, the private institutions bear the brunt. There are many risks. There are wages to pay. If this is a burden only on private entities, the risk of a high interest rate is there, as Rada said. Yunus is not dead, is still alive, but he didn't invent microcredit. It was our rural banks. Yunus copied the system and brought it to Bangladesh, getting to very high levels of territorial penetration. The same is done by them. When they haven't said that the most important figure, that is 5 million people reached all combined. When you reach 5 million people, it means that you're taking 5 million people away from poverty. If you do it together with public institutions, you reduce the interest rate. Very simple. Since the bank has a structure which grew over time, we started out in 13, now there are 450 people working in Italy, Spain, 9 countries of sub-Saharan Africa, Palestine, etc., applies the same interest rate to all the interest rate that is applied by the bank. We have Glenda, Filippo, Giuseppina, and many more here with us. Stefano. They perfectly know that the interest rate we apply in Gaza is 4%. So we should give complete information. Why? Because the bank has managed to grow. It has funds coming from the Italian government, from the cash deposit and loans. And as for social enterprise, there are funds from the European Commission. Then the fact that the bank publishes all the loans that it grants, all of them transparently saying where your money is going. It has civil economy that creates bridges and not walls. The bank creates peaceful conditions. So what is our stance? In 1999, we started establishing in Kosovo microfinance institutions together with Italian NGOs in cooperation. We like to cooperate, not to compete. What we do, and we do it in the various countries where there are similar types of situations, also in our country with the assets taken from the Corleone mob family. We do it in compliance with all the charters. So the Chapter 5 of the Charter of NATO says that if a country is attacked, all the countries respond. Our chapter says that we are ready to support all our members, because when we do credit, we do finance, we create seeds of peace. We're just back from Togo. No one pays us more. With Italian cooperation, we will start initiative in Palestine with card finance and any finance. With the colleagues today, we are discussing how we can do more and better than in the past. What we did in Microcredit in Albania, Bosnia, will also be done in Ukraine, because we're not taking steps back. What is our stance? We are on the good side of life, making choices that you can also make, because money is not good or bad. It's a tool. It's a means to an end, but you have to see how you use it. Thank you. Thank you, Gabriele. I'm happy to end our day with Gala Ivkovic. Welcome. So you have the honor and the burden of closing this series of speeches. I would like to give you 1 minute to explain what is this Robin, a citadel of peace. Swallow. What is swallow? Good morning. Thank you very much for inviting me. I will try to explain it in 1 minute, even if it's not an easy feat. I'm also Bosnian. I come from Mostar, and hearing all these anecdotes, I was very pleased. I would like to thank Banca Etica for the invitation, for the support. So Rondine Città della Pace is an association that is located in Arezzo, a medieval borough, which invites every year more than 20 students from all over the world, coming from conflict areas, who have been in the war or are in the war. We work on relationships, and it's important to understand well the conflict, experience the conflict, not deny it, and work on the relationship, so that every student can get at the end of his path to discover that there's no enemy. And also do social innovation. That's what we do with the students when they return to their countries. I've been very brief, but since you asked me a minute, I've tried to summarize the idea of what we're working on for more than 20 years now. I invite you to come and visit us in Arezzo to understand better what type of activities we're doing. Thank you, Banca Etica. Many impact projects have been developed that can approach the microcredit concept we talked about before. These are young people engaging to understand first what their conflict was, what they've suffered for, recreate the relationship, and then go back to their countries and do something for the entire community. Not for themselves alone, but for everyone else. Thank you. Thank you for your words and for the great synthesis. We are at the end. I give the floor to Gabriele Giulietti for the final conclusion. I have a question to ask you. Can you tell me in one word what you've understood from this morning? Can you say what we can do for peace? One word or two. So if you don't do it, I will call someone because I have the former peers of my son. Come on, one word. It's just one word. Georgia, pay attention. I'm going to call you. Come on, you cannot leave just as you entered. With all the things that you heard, the hard things that you heard, you're not leaving unscathed from this chat that you had. I'm not going to ask Tatiana, who's been in Palestine and Bosnia, but can you make a round of applause to her, please? Clap your hands. If no one stands up, I'm not going to call you. But I want to say one thing. Yeah, there are many things that can be done. For example, a student like you well, that's okay. Georgia's boyfriend went for 10 days to Moldavia to volunteer with refugees. You can do many things in this moment to leave this world better than we found it. But boys, Francesco, my son.
Grazie a tutti, grazie per...
Thank you all. Thank you for these words and for inviting us to participate, be active, feel responsible, and act accordingly. Thank you for your attention. Enjoy your day.